Wow, welcome to the Art of Coaching 2.0. Those of you that have been here with us the whole time, as you know, we did that 10-week series and really had a great time with you guys. Those of you that haven't, this is your first time, boy, we had a great time over that last 10 weeks of talking about coaching. And we're going to change the format up. We're going to have a guest speaker each time along with John and I, and have some back and forth with that speaker. Going to give you guys some opportunities to interact with each other a little bit more, and then give you some opportunity or some time to ask some questions of our guest. So we're really excited about having a chance to come back and spend time with you guys. So thank you again for being here with us, and we're going to get right into this. John, do you have anything you want to add before we get going?
No, man, you know what? This is, the whole co-host thing and working with Carla, I'm going to say this, that, a couple of years ago that I had the opportunity to read the book Captain's Class.
Yep.
And so I was getting through the beginning of it, and, it was kind of, the author was talking about, he was a Wall Street, he wasn't even a sports kind of, writer. He was a Wall Street guy, and he was talking about his research and then, we get to the middle of the book and all of a sudden I'm reading about Carla Overbeck, and for like the first 7 or 8 years that I'm working at Duke, she's like in the office right next to me. And I said, listen, if I knew you were such a big shot, I would have been your friend a lot faster than I was,
Yes.
So
yes.
It was just, I think that Carla is terrific to start off with. I think her perspective and her, her experience and her perspective is exceptional for what we're what we're trying to accomplish here. So I'm really delighted that she's leading off.
Yes. Yep. Me too. And I'm going to share the screen here with everybody because I want to, gosh, if I can get it to come up here. I want to just kind of give you a sense of Carla and who Carla is. One of the things I love about Carla is she's one of the most humble people you'll ever meet. And as you said, you are right there next to her, and you would never know how accomplished she's been in her career as an athlete and now as a coach. So let me share this real quickly, and so we can get going into this. Here we go. So here's Carla Overbeck. Just to give you a little bit of a background on Carla here, 4-time NCAA champion at that other place 8 miles down the road, 3-time All-American as a soccer player. Look at that record. They were 89-0-6, undefeated in 4 years, 4 NCAA champions there. At Carolina, was a captain there. Won a championship in the Pro League in 2002, and interestingly enough, I think it was against Philadelphia, right, with Mia and a couple of your other teammates, right, that you played against. They won a championship there. How about this? She played in every minute of the 95 Women's World Cup, 96 Olympics, 99 Women's World Cup. She was a captain for the 1995 World Cup, 1996 Olympics, 1999 Women's World Cup, 2000 Olympics. She has a gold and silver medal from those opportunities there. She was inducted into the National Soccer Hall of Fame in 2006. And she's currently, we're very fortunate to have her as a assistant women's coach there at Duke. And I know as John, I consider her a friend, and we're just really thankful, Carla, that you are willing to come and spend some time with us. And so we're going to get this going. And so a couple things. We're going to ask Carla to talk a little bit about leadership from an athlete perspective, and how you guys might be able to help your athletes develop leadership and some of the lessons she learned there. And then we're going to ask her to talk a little bit about her coaching perspective and how she's evolved as a coach. So welcome, Carla. Thanks again for coming. And first question I want to ask, and I know John's going to jump in here as well, is if you were going to talk to these guys about developing leadership amongst their athletes, and we have people that coach club sports, we have high school sports, we have college, we have some professional coaches that coach at the professional level here. What are some of the things that you would encourage them to do in terms of developing leadership in their programs among their athletes.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thanks for letting me join you guys. I know you've had a pretty successful program, and I hope your viewership isn't down because I'm speaking tonight. But obviously you guys are incredible people and coaches and mentors at Duke, and I just want to say thanks for letting me join you guys. So in talking about leadership and developing leadership on your team, what I do at Duke, and I'm the assistant coach there, and I've been there for 28 seasons, and I feel like it's really important to practice servant leadership, and I did it with the national team. I do it at Duke, and I just feel like, being the captain of the national team and, playing alongside Mia Hamm, Julie Foudy, Christine Lilly, who's the most capped player, male or female in the world, Brandy Chastain, I had Michelle Akers, and I was fortunate enough to be chosen as the captain. And I think it's really important, servant leadership. So like, I was the one picking up the cones. I'm the one, helping collect up the balls at the end of practice. And you have to be mindful of your surroundings and, encourage them to be helpful. Because I know sometimes, these kids coming up through high school and college, they have different backgrounds and what they were, asked to do in their family. And I just feel like, if you're the one doing those things, then you're going to get some good stuff out of them. Like this past year, we had some really good leaders in the past. And I'm not saying that the two captains that we had this year at Duke were not good leaders, because they were two of the best ones we've ever had. But at the beginning of the season, I went up to them and just said, hey, during preseason, for these next 2 weeks, you guys are going to do everything. So you are going to carry the balls to and from practice. You're going to clean up the locker room. When we have team meals, you're going to clean up after team meals. And that way you're sort of setting a precedent that, hey, look what these captains do. And I feel like it was pretty successful. That's kind of how I did it with the national team. We'd be flying to China or flying to Australia, and we'd be traveling for, 28, 30 hours. And our equipment manager has probably, I'd say 15 or 16 of our equipment bags. And so many times my teammates would just walk past him. They see all these bags lying on the ground, and, everyone's tired. Everyone wants to go to bed. And, I just made sure that I was one of the ones that were like, hey, Dinus, I'm going to help you. So I'd grab a bag or grab a teammate to help carry a bag. And then just by your behavior, not like you're shaming teammates or shaming people into doing things, but I feel like you're just setting a very good example. And I feel like that's kind of what my leadership style on the national team, I played for 13 years, was, obviously very fortunate to be elected captain. And that's just kind of how I rolled. And not to just put me up on a pedestal. I think our whole team was very similar. We were early on in the national team days. We were out in California in Chula Vista at one of the training camps, and the boys were playing before us. They were training before our training, and we were watching them. And Bora would blow his whistle. That was the head coach at the time, and the guys would walk over and get water, and then you'd see these like 10 other guys run out to the field and start picking up the cones and putting them back down and grabbing the goals and moving them. And I'm thinking, holy shit, like, what is going on? We don't have those guys at our training sessions. And I feel like that made our team special. Like we fought for each other. We did all the dirty work. And I just think it's really important to impress upon your high school players or your college players, or even people that you work with. You just let them know that as one of the leaders, this is what it's going to do. And I feel like if they see the captains grabbing all the stuff, if they see the captains cleaning up the locker room and cleaning up after our meals, then I feel like other teammates will jump on board, and
Carla,
they'll be willing to help.
Carla, where do you think, where did you learn that? Was there a mentor or a role model earlier in your life where you picked up on that?
I grew up with two older brothers and an older sister that was like a brother. And so I wanted to be like they were. And it was just kind of ingrained in us growing up that we did chores and we did work. And, I just felt like with my personality, I always wanted to help. I don't really remember a certain time where I'm thinking, oh, I remember someone doing that for me, but it's just like, that's just what you do, man. Right. And I feel like that's probably the best practice you can do with your high schoolers and your collegiate players is just teach them to serve their team. And I think it goes a long, long way. Another thing we did with the Duke team is this past year, we had them read the Legacy book, and it's about the All Blacks. I'm sure all you guys are very familiar with that. And just the practices they did. We wanted to make sure that this team that we had this past season, was going to learn from the team in this book and just how the culture is and the sacrifices they made for each other. And we discussed it a few times, during preseason and throughout the year. And the big thing was sweeping the sheds. And, it was awesome how our kids just embraced it, and they all worked for each other, and they all helped out when the duties came along. I know we talked about, or this might come up later, but the freshmen, like, we don't assign freshman duties because we just don't feel that that's okay. And, we can talk about that later, but I feel like the best way you guys can get your teams to be good leaders is, serve them and teach them how to do that.
So can you, since you mentioned that, and we've talked about this, but love to have your perspective on that. Traditionally we have rites of passage where freshmen kind of have to earn their spots and earn their stripes and do that. How does that jive with the whole servant leadership piece, and your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think just, I think it's really important because, just like you said, the rite to passage, it's like, you don't want to come in and just start assigning people because they get upset or they're not really emotionally invested in it. And, that's, I think, the best way for incoming freshmen to learn is from their upperclassmen. And so, give your upperclassmen responsibilities and teach them how to basically teach the culture that you want when those freshmen come up to be seniors and, in their age, that they're doing the same thing. So you kind of repeat the cycle, because in college and in high school, you lose these kids every 4 years. And so it's just a constant, just a constant with teaching and, letting them know that, hey, this is what we do here. And I feel like if you're not, demanding that they do things, then it works out a lot better.
Yeah, good. John, you want to ask her anything?
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable. I think we're moving at a good pace, and
Okay. I have another. One of the things, and Carla is very gracious to come and speak to the captains at Duke each year. And one of the things that we've talked a lot about, Carla, is the importance of, as a coach, developing emotional equity with your athletes. Because if you do that, when you have to challenge them and push them, they're maybe going to be more likely to take that the right way. And one of the things that strikes me about what you did was you didn't call it emotional equity, but you were very tough on your teammates on the field, but you also invested in them off the field. Can you talk a bit about that and how high school, college athletes can do that? Because I'd like for you to talk about how demanding you were, but also how you invested in them off the field. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And, I think how you gain credibility how I did as a player, I did the right thing. I had integrity. I tried to set good examples. I followed the rules. I was never, ever the best on our team. I was never the fastest. I was never the most skilled. But what I brought every single day in training and to games was my work ethic. Like, I was going to let no one outwork me. And so I feel that, they had respect for me that way. And I knew that, yes, I held them to a very high standard, and I even held myself to a higher standard. And I feel like they appreciated that, they respected that. And so if, I did have to get on them, then they knew that, she knows that I can do better, and I'm just not doing that. And so as a player, I felt like just because I worked really hard, I demanded their respect. As a coach, it's kind of similar, right? So you want to do the right thing. You want to be honest. You want to get to know the players as people. And I love what our national team would do. We would have dinners at various teammates' houses. We'd say, hey, let's go grab some lunch together, because you already know they're really good players or you wouldn't have recruited them. And so you just have to know them as people. And I think they appreciate that. And, you express behaviors that how you would want to be treated, and I feel like if you do that, your teammates are going to follow in that direction. Be respectful, be gracious. The hardest thing for me is, as a coach, when you're mentoring these 18 to 22-year-old women, when we lose, I hate to freaking lose. I hate it. And I have learned throughout my years that, you have to be gracious when you win and you lose. And so that's something that I try to do, just so I'm a role model for my players, and, to show them that, yeah, it sucks when you lose, but you also have to be gracious. And so I feel like, that's how I conduct myself. I haven't always done that as a coach. I've certainly learned as I've gone along. But, Greg, also just talking about the emotional equity, everyone knows that you want to win. Everyone knows that you have a vested interest in them as people. You want to do the right thing. You want them to know that you care about them. And, you want them just to basically believe in you so that they work hard for you. And I know as a player, I tried to do that.
Hey, Greg, a quick question, and just this is not necessarily off topic, but, as a player, everybody here now is dealing with the club scenes, where they're involved in the club and recruiting, and we're trying to, we believe in the school setting and the school situations, but when kids are out being evaluated, since you were, obviously involved in tryouts, and you were involved in, how about some kind of insights to, the mental process for kids and how to help prepare them, when they're being evaluated and when they're being watched, because because of the pressure that they feel. Because the pressure, certainly, I'm sure the first time you made, the national team, there had to be a tremendous amount of pressure trying out.
Yeah, for sure. And, these kids these days have so much pressure on them, and just what they have to take in order to get into college. I barely even fill out an application. So it's a much different process now. And, trying out for teams is obviously very stressful. And, I'm reading this book called The Happiness Advantage, and it basically says that, if you're happy, then successes come. And so I feel like as a coach, especially in high school and even the club levels, just make the kids feel at ease at tryouts, because they're already just a ball of nerves. And so, the people, and we all perform best when we are happy, right? And so if you can just help them sort of through the process, and maybe tell a joke, or, have a smile on your face, and, talk to them, then I think that will put their mind more at ease about tryouts. And when the kids at Duke, our players have problems when, they don't, they're lacking confidence, or, obviously they go to Greg Dell and he helps them quite a bit. But if they come to me, I just reassure them, like, you belong here. We recruited you for what you have done prior to coming to Duke. We don't want that to be what you hang your hat on and that's all you do. No, we want you to continue to improve, to make yourself better and our team better. But I just have to remind them that, if I didn't believe in you, you wouldn't be here. And so I think that's helpful, just for coaches, and just letting them know that they do belong and there is a reason why they're there. And I think with the whole tryout situation, you can kind of do the same thing. Is just let them know, like, hey, obviously we think you're a good player. We wouldn't have invited you to tryouts. Or maybe if we didn't invite you to tryouts, be at ease and show us what you can do. So just reassure them that way, I think.
Thank you.
Really good question.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So, how about you as a coach? How do you feel like you've evolved as a coach? Do you do things the same way you did when you first started, or like
No
what's
way.
different about what's different about you, and what advice would you have for these guys around the evolution of coaching?
Yeah, and so when I came to Duke in '92, I was still playing on the national team, and so I came obviously from a pretty high level, and I continued through 2000 after the Sydney Olympics, and so I'd never coached before. Um, obviously I've been around many really good coaches and supportive coaches, and some coaches that I didn't really care for, but I came in and just expected that and assumed that everybody was like me and wanted to play at the next level and got after it every single day in practice. And there's this funny story. We had this one player who was really, really good. And I couldn't figure her out, because she would just come to training and just kind of, be out there kicking the ball around and having fun. And it would drive me crazy. And I would get on her. And I would just say, come on, like, you're not trying that hard. Your effort needs to be better. We're trying to win games here, and just stayed on her like the whole season. And finally at the end of the season, the head coach at the time, Bill Hempen, was like, listen, give her a break. She's not wired like you are. She doesn't want to play at the next level. When she's done with college, she's going to get a really good job, and she's going to get a ton of money for doing what she does. And so this is a release for her. She's had a tough day at school, and she wants to come out and just have fun. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. And I was just thinking, she's wasting her time out here, right? And so it took me a couple of years to figure that out. And when I was first starting, I would jump into training, and I would try to play, and I would try to coach, because I felt like the best way to teach them was to get on them and get stuck into them, and basically show them, like, this is what the collegiate game is all about. And I think as I realized, and I had to coach them, and sometimes I would leave practice and I would be so upset. So I just kind of had to take a step back and, like, okay, you've never done this before. Clearly you're frustrated, and, just coach the girls, like, be their friend, coach them, develop them, make them get better. And so I kind of had to figure out a different way to interact. And, I certainly couldn't, get stuck in on them, a hard tackle, although that's what I felt like the best way for them to learn, like, this is what the next level is going to be. Right. And I just, not like I didn't hold them to a higher standard. I sort of just used my voice more and encouraged them to hold each other accountable instead of it coming from me all the time.
Yeah. John, and you've talked about that too, just in terms of how these guys are wired differently than you are, and they don't live, eat, and breathe lacrosse every single day like you do. And was that an evolution for you as well, the realization that?
Oh, absolutely. And I felt like I had a pretty good balance. Like, soccer was a big part of my life, but it clearly was not my whole life. And I felt like as I matured more, and I realized that I needed to show some empathy, and I needed to understand that not everybody, wants what I wanted. And it took me years to kind of figure that out. And, once I was better at getting to know them as people, talk about non-soccer stuff, ask them how their family is. But I don't want you to think that I held them to any less of a standard, because I didn't. And, as I got older and more mature, I learned, how to control my emotions a little bit better, and not get so upset with players that maybe didn't want to play after college. And, and sort of sometimes how I behaved, I feel like I made the situations more chaotic, and it didn't have to be like that. And that definitely took me, years to figure out. And so, now that I'm a little bit more calm, and, obviously when I need to get on them, when I need to have the standard higher, I think we all do that pretty well as a coaching staff.
Yeah. How about you, Coach Danowski, and your evolution around that piece?
I think it's, yeah, I think that's the natural evolution of coaching. I couldn't help but think about Carla and maybe the analogy a little bit to my own son. Just because you were really, really a good player and had a lot of success, the struggle, for all of us is that, yeah, I can remember being on a bus when I was at CW Post after a loss. And boy, if I heard anybody talking in the back, I want to know who was talking. I want to know who wasn't, depressed about losing. I wanted to know, and I was going to let them have it. And there were times where I let the team have it when we got off the bus. That you guys, you don't care, but then you recognize that, they're taking 4 or 5 classes. They've got a family, they've got social life, they've got, all these things going on. They're thinking about their futures, and lacrosse is something they do for a couple of hours in the afternoon. And it's, every once in a while when you get those kids who can do it all, that's great. But I think, what Carl is saying is that it is the natural evolution, I think, for most of us.
Yeah. And I have a friend who told me that the sooner you figure that out, the more you're going to enjoy what you do, and the more they're going to enjoy, and the less frustrated you're going to be. And that's hard when you're really, really competitive. How about, and Josh and Ben have asked some questions in the text, and we're going to get to those guys a little bit later. Carla, how about just from a coaching standpoint, for all those assistant coaches out there, what advice do you guys have for them in that role, and what do you really give? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I love being an assistant. I felt like with the national team, I was at the highest level and lots of pressure, and I love my role as an assistant. I love working for Robbie, who is the head coach at Duke, Robbie Church. And I feel like first and foremost, assistants, you guys have to be loyal. There are a lot of times when you have disagreements, and I feel like that's good because coaches don't hire you just to be a yes person. As an assistant, you want to not push the envelope, but, kind of set out other ideas just for the staff and the head coach to think about, and, maybe changes or, personnel changes. But what you have to, come back to is whatever your boss decides on, that's what you have to go with. They're the head coach. You are the assistant role. You can never, ever have disagreements or confrontations in front of the team. You can definitely have confrontations away from the team, because I think that's how you grow as a staff, and you get better, and you get, I think, more unified. But, you want to make sure that the way you do it is very respectful. Like you don't want their job, and reassure them that. And I just feel like you always have to let the team know, even if you don't agree with it, you have to fake it, and if they ask you about it, that's happened to me sometimes, and they've come to me and why are we doing this? And, you have to be loyal to your boss, and just that's what you do. And so I feel like loyalty is a big issue. You stay united in front of the team. And then if you do have differences, you can take them up, and like we do in the conference room right next to our offices. And, loyalty for me is number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it also talks a little bit about, or speaks to a little bit about Robbie Church's strength to hire somebody like Carla, who is so accomplished and so knowledgeable. There are many coaches who don't want to surround themselves with people who might be, smarter or look at things a different way, or can be a threat, to his position or to his authority. But that's also a tremendous compliment, to Coach Church as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, best boss ever.
He is the best.
Yeah, Robbie's pretty awesome, right? So here's what we're going to do. We told you guys we're going to switch it up a little bit, and we're going to give you guys an opportunity to, I have some questions up here based on some of the topics that Carla talked about. And we're just going to give you an opportunity to spend some time with some of your colleagues around the world. We have people here from Vietnam, and we have people from Asia, different parts of Asia, all over the world, literally. And I think you guys can interact with each other. That's one of the things you guys asked for, is an opportunity to do that. I know some of you are more comfortable doing that than others, but if you don't feel like talking that much, hopefully you'll just take it in and listen. So I'm going to put you guys into some smaller rooms here just for a little bit, introduce yourselves, have some interactions around these questions, some of your thoughts, share some of your thoughts with each other, and then we'll bring you back, have a couple of you report out, and then we'll give you opportunities to ask Carla some questions as we start to wrap
Greg,
it
I
up.
want to emphasize that in the groups, please introduce yourself. What's your position, your title, your position, where you're from. I think you might find that you all have more in common than you know.
Yes, that's right. So let me share the screen here, and what I'm going to ask you to do, because I haven't figured out how to give this to you when you're in your groups. Can you guys just take a picture of these questions here? So how do you, from your perspective, how do you develop leaders on the teams that you coach? What is your philosophy on the rites of passage, and how does that work with servant leadership? How do you feel like you've evolved as a coach? And what are your major takeaways from Carla's points, and what were those major takeaways for you? So, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So if you could take a picture of that real quickly. Going to give you about, say, 15 minutes or so here just to spend some time. You might not get to all these, and that's okay. But I hope you'll use this as an opportunity to truly share some thoughts and ideas with other people from around the world. So I'm going to put you guys into groups here, and we'll have like 6 or so in each group. And I'd love for you guys to share some of your thoughts with each other, and we'll call you back in 15 minutes here. I'll check in on you and on your rooms and see how that's going. Thank you for doing that. I know for some people it's a little more comfortable than others. Appreciate you guys being willing to do that. Maybe just a couple of you, anything stand out for you guys that you talked about that you'd be willing to share with the whole group? And then I want to open it up for some questions with Carla. As we've done in the past, we'll say we're done at 10, but we're going to go into overtime, and we'll stick around for a little bit for those of you that are willing to do that and have more questions. But
I love me some overtime.
yes, that's right. Yes. How about anybody have a comment for the whole group that you think is worth sharing that somebody talked about in your group?
Let's go. We've been together long enough. Let's go. Speak up.
All right, Coach. Sorry. Go ahead,
No, go
Trish.
ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Okay. So the one thing me and John talked about it. I'm sorry to tell. I coach at New York Tech, a Division II school here on Long Island. A small little side note: Coach Danowski's high school coach was also my college coach, Jack Haley, legendary guy. If you ever saw him at a convention, you know who he is. The one thing I told John when we started recently is we asked about leadership and how from these 2 questions our leadership has developed into captains where they've come. We've asked our guys 2 simple questions. And it's anonymous, and then we shuffle those cards and read it. One of them is, if you were to play every minute of every game, and we as a team do not play to a championship level, are you okay with that? Yes or no? And they could check it, and there's an explain box. And then the second question is, if you were to develop a role for us and play a certain amount of time and a certain amount of minutes, and we do as a team play to a championship level, are you okay with that? And then an explain box. And what we found after we did, they'd shuffle them up, and the guys read them. And then we do it again halfway through the season. And the guys we found that had that team mentality of like, it's important for me to play the championship level with everybody, regardless of playing time. Those guys have developed into our captains as the year's going on. Whether it was a freshman fills it out, and every grade level fills it out. So that was just a little tidbit I want to share with you guys. It's 2 simple questions. You ask them to your guys, and we found over the last 5 years how it's really kind of just like shown where that leadership comes from, and those guys that they don't all become captains, they're just leaders on our team. They're just guys who, and some of them are sophomores, which is amazing. The respect level as a good athlete can have, but where their mentality is, you look down the bench when things aren't going right. Is that always a senior getting this guy back going again, or is that a sophomore or a freshman? And that's a powerful thing. And then when things are going great, who's hanging their heads? Is it a senior who's just really got enough playing time yet, or he hasn't played a role for us yet? So two simple questions that we found that we think is a great way to try to develop leaders inside the game of lacrosse.
Thanks, Tim.
That's awesome.
Great. Trish?
Well, we talked about with the rites of passage and the philosophy, we really got stuck on like certain things within our program. We talked about the bus. I can't remember, gosh, it wasn't our group. I'm sorry, I'm awful with names, but he was talking about how it was a bad situation that, sitting with seniors, freshmen, and we started talking about how do you work with kids in certain situations like that. And one of our people said, he sits by position and he rotates, has his captains be the last ones off the bus. We talk about, picking up the bus. We were talking about, not making our freshmen do everything. And I know that I've evolved as a coach by, I'm really trying to get off that rite of passage and making my upperclassmen show a little bit more leadership and showing the younger ones how we are going to do things in our program. But I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, and how we develop our leaders. We also talked about putting them in difficult situations and allowing them to fail. Sometimes it's hard as us coaches allowing our kids to fail, but sometimes that is some of the best ways to see who your leaders are, who's going to pick up those pieces when things aren't going well.
Awesome. Love that. Very good. Love that. So how about Carla? What are some questions you guys have for Carla? I don't know, Carla, if you can see the chat over here, but Josh, his question was about the emotional equity piece and the servant leadership piece. How, as an assistant, are you empowered by your head coach and staff to dive into those without causing friction with other staff members or that may not engage in that? I don't know if you've ever had that, but you understand?
Yeah, I feel like, we just remind each other a lot. And I don't feel like I have to ask permission to do things that I do. And maybe it's just because Robbie and I and our staff has such a good understanding of each other and a good relationship that he trusts what I say to the girls will be right. And he would probably agree with that. So I feel like I'm fortunate that way. But I just think it's really important to, especially as an assistant, because, the head coach can't get to everybody all the time, every single day. And I try to make it a point to, say something so that each of the team members have something said to them positive every day. And, it's really easy to do it to the kids that are good and contributing and working really hard. And I just try to find something to say to the ones that haven't gotten kind of like a kudos or and that's, I feel like that's your job as an assistant, because the head coach has so many things that is consuming them, and they can't talk to 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And I'm a firm believer that every single player on that team is important and their role is important. And so that's what I try to do as an assistant, is just make those kids feel wanted and valued. And, I just feel like it's a really important role. Otherwise you have, friction, you have people breaking off, and, misery loves company, and they get them on their team, and then, you have all kinds of issues. One thing I thought about, talking about leadership too, is we take their phones away when we go to meals, when we're on the road, and we take them, and it's amazing how loud they get and how chatty, and they seem like they're having so much fun. And then also we encourage them to sit with people that maybe they haven't sat with before, or when we get in pairs in practice, I always say, pick a partner that you've never been with before. And so they try to get to know their other teammates and get out of their comfort zone a little bit, and become better teammates to each other.
Awesome. Anybody else have a question?
I have one, Greg, for Carla.
Yep.
Your success as a player, and then your success at coaching. Has there been one common denominator that has contributed to that success throughout your career? And also, the team was successful, and then coaching a team, that team's been successful. Has there been a common denominator between those two?
I think it's just, I never took myself super seriously off the field. When I was on the field, I was business. I just tried to let my teammates know that I cared about them. I try to let my players that I coach now know that I care about them. And I feel like I've been pretty successful in both areas because I've been that kind of person. And, I show compassion, I have empathy. And I feel just those kind of characteristics and those traits sort of just who I am. Like, I don't have to fake that. I don't have to pretend. And I feel like maybe that's been helpful for me as a player and as an assistant coach.
Don't you just want to hang out with Carla? I mean, there's some people
Come
that
on, come to Chapel Hill. Let's go.
you just get that vibe, and you just get that like, yeah, I don't want to hang out with her. I want to just I want some of that mojo to rub off.
I'm really not that cool.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Just ask my kids.
Right. Yeah. Look, we're at 10 o'clock. We're going to go into overtime here. If you have to leave, we totally get that. Hopefully you took something from tonight that you can use going forward. The same password is going to work every week, so you don't have to look for that. So obviously hang on to that one, and it should work every week. We'll have a new guest next week. We'll post that stuff online on Tuesday, so look for that. Please encourage other coaches that haven't been here yet. It'd be a great goal for all of you to maybe tell 2 other coaches to come and join us and be a part of what we're trying to do here. So,
But probably not in your conference, because
yeah,
then
there you go, right.
if you're getting the same information, then that's kind of like.
That's right.
So
For
probably
sure, because
somebody-
they are the enemy.
That's right. Yes.
Right. So
So thank you, those of you that have to leave. But Carla, I know these guys want to have some. There's some more questions in the chat. Ben.
Yeah, definitely. I'm up for it.
Yeah,
I'm
so
ready.
Ben's asking. So how did you start to figure out those players that want to go to the next level, the ones that don't, the ones that maybe do have the potential but just don't have the work ethic? Do you have any insight into how to try to figure that out and how?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they have to want it for themselves. Like, you can't want somebody, like I wanted this one kid on our team when I first started in 92. I wanted her to go to the next level, and she wanted no part of it. And that's fine, right? But those kids that do want that extra, that have that, the mind that want to go to the next level, I am all about helping them. And maybe, they, who knows if what their skill level is for, that next level. Maybe it's not national team, but maybe it's collegiate. And so I would just do everything in my power to help them sort of understand what it takes, how you have to train. I mean, it's a grind, and what you do when you're away from practice and your coach is not watching. That's what makes you what you are. It's internal motivation. It's willing to put yourself out there and just do everything you can, to be successful and to get better. And, this is the great thing. From high school to college, there's Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA. I mean, there are all kinds of different places where these kids can play. And so I would just encourage that. There's nothing I hate more than coaches that tell kids, or, he's never going to make it, she's never going to make it. Like, that makes me crazy, because if a kid wants to play in college, there is a place for them. And you as a coach can help them learn, maybe what the proper place is and what the right level is. And then, if they have that desire, help them get there. That's what coaching is all about, is helping and teaching and getting these kids to be, great people, not just in high school, college, but beyond. I mean, I get so excited when our former players reach back out to us and let us know what they're doing now. And I mean, I get so much gratification out of that I helped kind of mold them into what they're going to become. And it's not just about a sport, it's about the rest of your life.
And do you think you can create a culture, even if I don't want to go to the next level and I'm there because kind of mom and dad want me to be there, it's going to look good on my college resume. Can you still build a culture, both you and John, where the expectation is, well, we're together, we're going to work really hard. We're going to be demanding of you, and there's going to be a certain standard that you're going to be held to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel strongly about that. And, a lot of people don't want to play at the next level for whatever reason, and that's okay. But while you have them there, they are part of a team, you can make it fun, you can make it competitive, you can make it all these great things that define a team. And, that will help them even if they don't play a sport in college.
Yeah.
Sorry, Coach Danowski, I probably jumped in there. You had something to say.
No, not at all. No, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
They've listened to us for 10 weeks, so this is, this is awesome.
Yeah. So anyone else outside the chat?
I thought there was a great question, Greg, in the chat
Yeah.
about toughness.
Yeah.
And I think for, listen, I still struggle old school. I mean, I didn't grow up with women as athletes, in school. They played half court basketball, and I'm showing my age, right? They played maybe a little bit of field hockey, but there wasn't organized athletics for women.
Yeah.
And so, but the toughness aspect I saw in one of the chat questions, how do you kind of teach that, instill that, figure that out? Or is that something that you just have and you can't teach it?
I think I learned it from my siblings. Like I said, I had 3 older siblings, and I had to fight and scrap and claw for everything I got. And, I think that if people come into your program without it, I feel like you can teach it and sort of grow that within your culture, and letting them know that, this conference is tough and we have to be tougher as a group. And maybe you pull one of the tougher kids aside and just say, hey, I love what you're doing. I understand that you're getting after it every single day, and I'm going to help get this team to your level. And maybe they even help with the competitiveness of their teammates. Because if you don't have it, I feel like you can cultivate it. Some kids, obviously, you probably can't, but they have to have just an ounce of wanting it, and wanting to be tougher, and wanting to be a part of this team that can achieve things.
Awesome.
And do the Duke women's soccer teams, you guys work hard, but do you still have some fun?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Why
yeah.
is that important? Because I think it's important, particularly like at the high school level, where not everybody is wanting to be a Division I athlete or Division III, so they come for different reasons. Can we still work hard and have some fun at the same time? I think you got to try to do that.
Absolutely. If you're not having fun, you shouldn't be doing it, right? You're just wasting your time and wasting other people's time. So I don't do things that aren't fun. I try to make everything I do fun.
Yeah. Question from John Lancey. Yep.
Hey, Carla, how you doing?
What's going on? Good to see you.
Yep, good seeing you. Listen, I have a question in regards, and you see that at the high school level, I'm sure you've seen it as your children came through, when you have that just wide range of what Greg just said of kids at the younger level of why they're there. But, it's important for some reason because they're showing up every day. And you've got that higher end kid, and you really want to, have a chance to go through the process of trying to win big, right? I mean, the outcome does matter, and you're trying to go out there with the process to try and get an outcome. But for the kid that's really good, who, I always say that it factor piece, right? I remember Coach Haas's son, the former Carolina coach, his son, I coached him in high school. Like when you walked in the huddle, you just were like, all right, man, that guy's on our team. Like we got a chance. Like, and everybody felt that way. Is that something you can teach, and all those great players you've been around in your career, just that it factor? That person that was in the huddle, that calming way, but was tough, but you just like, wow, we got a chance because that person, and they just dragged everybody along.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have watched The Last Dance. Michael Jordan, he was that guy that could put his entire freaking team on his shoulders and win and get them all to win. You know, I wasn't talented enough. And so I tried to, you know, encourage my teammates to do things that, you know, I couldn't do. And so I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. And so I figured out a way to connect with each of them to get the best out of them, so that we would succeed. You know, and high school teams, you know, obviously in college, you would hope that they're there for that reason and they want to compete. But, you know, high school teams, you might not have those kids. And I think if you make it fun and you make it interesting and, you know, you get them to compete, then they'll come along and they'll understand kind of why they're there. But I feel like the fun piece, you know, you can be like our national team was really successful and we were a bunch of dorks. Like we, you know, we made fun of each other. We laughed. We were stupid. We were silly. And, you know, if you can't make fun of yourself, you know, you should be able to make fun of yourself. And so I just feel like having fun is one of the top of the list. You should figure out a way to make it interesting and fun for your team. And you can even, you know, make it competitive so that that player on the team gets it and they continue to get better.
Isn't that a function of confidence? That if you are confident in who you are, it's easy to make fun of yourself. You know, but if you're struggling a little bit with your self-image, you're struggling a little bit with, you know, somebody says something, it's easy then maybe to, you know, to not surrender, but it's easy to take a step back.
Yeah, no, I guess that you're right, you know, and not get defensive. But also, you know, by sort of making fun of people and not in a derogatory,
Sure.
you know, terrible way, you know, it shows them that you like them, right? And you can joke around with them and, you know, and you encourage that kind of banter so that, you know, it does become more fun. But maybe you are right about the confidence piece and, you know, but there were times where, you know, in college or shoot, even with the national team, sometimes I was like, I can't play worth the crap this game, or I'm doing horrible in practice. I've lost every single game. And I would just revert back to, you know, yeah, I would maybe say something, but then, you know, you have to realize that you're there for a reason and that you belong and you were recruited to come there. Or, you know, you went through this tough tryout with the national team and you made it. And so, you know, dang, you belong there. And that's what I would just kind of have to tell myself when I would start to think about, you know, my confidence and I'm not playing worth a crap right now.
But you earned that right to be there. You alluded to this a little bit. I want to ask Lynn's question. She's the one that lives in Idaho in that beautiful place. Her husband, Bill, watched with her tonight, and he's talking about, you know, what do you look for in addition to the talent piece? And, you know, John talked about it a little bit. But I know right now you guys in the soccer staff are working on your and really looking at your core values and standards of your program. Can you talk a little bit about that and how important that is, number one, but also how you're going to be using that continually in your recruiting process of
right. And you know, when you're recruiting, you're watching everything. You watch how they interact with their teammates. You watch how they interact with opponents. You watch how after games, if they walk up to their parents and they throw their bag down or give me some water, you know, you don't want those kind of kids, right? You want kids that want to be there, that understand, you know, the culture. You know, with us, it's our Duke family, and that's kind of the overarching thing with our core values. And obviously, we want them to have grit. You know, do they get stuck into tackles? If they get knocked down, or, you know, if they get tackled, you know, do they bounce back up? Do they roll? Unfortunately, like most international soccer players, it's like they get kicked, they touch them, and they roll around like they've been shot. Like, do they do that? You know, how do they handle adversity? You know, are they competitive? You know, do they have integrity? And so these are all things that we look at when we're recruiting. You know, when the coach says something to them, maybe not in a positive way, how do they react? Can they take it? You know, do they pout? There are just so many factors that go into recruiting. Obviously, you want to get the best, most talented player, but if that person doesn't have the work ethic that you're looking for, then I would rather have 10 other people that don't work as hard, or maybe not as talented, but work harder. So there are lots and lots of things, and you can kind of tell your kids that means, it's during the warm up. It's not just in the game. And sometimes we as coaches, when we're going around, and I don't know if you guys have this with lacrosse, and maybe you just get to see the warm up, or you just get to see the warm up in 10 minutes, and then you have to move on to the next field. And so you just want to let these kids know that, not to scare them, but just to let them know that, hey, this is how you want to be. This is what coaches are looking for. And it's not just, their talent, although that is something that we do look at, but we look at really the whole person and everything involved.
And I will say this, I am not a soccer guy, right? I'm from a football family and didn't grow up watching a lot of soccer, but if I have a choice between watching a women's game and a men's game, I love the women's game. And I think what Carla is talking about, the women, there is nothing phony, or nobody takes a dive, they play hard all the time. And if you get a chance during the year, some of the games will be on the ACC network if your carrier gets that, and you can see their team in action. And they play so well together. It's really fun to watch, and ultimately it's a great Tuesday night or a Friday night or Sunday afternoon out to watch the women's soccer team play.
Oh, thank you.
No, it's unsolicited. I didn't.
Anyone else have a question?
Greg, John O'Grady here, if I could.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, so the first thing I want to do is, because Lord knows I'll never get the opportunity again, and just tell Carla, as a person who spent 30 years in the United States Army, thank you. Thank you for the example that you've set. Thank you for the example that the women of the U.S. Women's Soccer National Team has set. Because nobody nationally, globally knows John O'Grady. But they do know you. They do know many of your teammates, and so thanks for the example that you all set. That's just a heartfelt thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I know you, John O'Grady. Yeah, nice to meet you.
You and 50 other people who are on here right now. And nice to meet you too, Carla. And thanks for being here. But the question is, really, so there's a phrase, right? We're all familiar with this now. It's become kind of vogue, especially in basketball, about load management. And when people speak about load management, they're speaking about the physical aspects of the game. I would love to hear your thoughts, not only as somebody who was a captain at the highest level with, Lord only knows the type of pressure that the team was under. You think about that 99 team, right? I mean, oh my God. And then now also as a coach, is there a psychological, emotional load management aspect that you think through when it comes to your captains and what's asked of them? And if so, how do you help them navigate that or mitigate and alleviate that as a coach?
Yeah, that's a big one, because at a school like Duke, where academics is, it can be brutal. And so we take all of that into consideration. And if, yes, the captains do have a responsibility and duties to lead the team. So maybe there's something, we have a leadership group, and it will consist this year of our 9 seniors. 2 of them are redshirt, so they're a 5th-year senior. And we would help with that load by maybe giving them some responsibility. Like maybe I text them, hey, when we're on the road, we have a couple of options to eat, survey the team and see where, you guys want to go. So we would just kind of give some other tasks to the others in that sort of leadership group to keep our captains more concerned and worried about, the not important things, but things that they can control. And but that's a great question, because it is playing at that level, and like Coach Danowski said earlier, they have to be students, and sometimes they come to us and they're just like, I need to take a day off. and, I'm getting crushed in school. I'm having some personal problems. And we as a staff are like, we listen, and if we can help in any way, absolutely. And go home and take care of what you need to do. And so there's a human side, obviously, that you have rules. You don't want them skipping practices, but at the same time, the stress that is on these kids. And I feel like we do a really good job of sort of monitoring that. We have this monitoring system that we do if their mood, they wake up every single morning, they have to have it in by 11 o'clock. It's fit for 90. And, mood is on there. Their stress level is on there. Their muscles, how sore they are, that's on there. And so we see that every day. And if I get someone that, is in the red, almost purple, I'll text them and, hey, are you doing okay? I saw that you're really stressed today, or your mood is not great. So we have that way to keep in touch with them. We ask the kids, be really honest, because this device is here to help us. And so, we make sure that we're really in touch with each and every player. And that's what assistant coaches can certainly help the head coach do. And I feel like that's part of your job, just keeping in touch with them and how they are mentally. That's very important.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Thank you very much. And thanks again for your service to our nation.
Thank you. And thank you for your service.
Hey, Carla, during your time, how many former women's soccer players are doctors?
A lot.
A lot, right?
Yeah.
20?
I would say so, yes. And in the banking, which is really stressful too. We just had a call with someone that was, on Wall Street, and just the stresses and the anxiety and all the noise and the confusion on the floor. And I know it's a lot better than it used to be, but those are pressure situations. The doctors, it's life or death with those guys, right? And so, what they do.
It made me think about when you were talking about, the stress and it's easy to blow off, but, again, it's this theme of, these kids are high achieving and they have goals outside of what we're doing, which also makes it tough for us to manage, because they are the ultimate student athletes, which is one of the reasons that we love coaching the sports, at the level that, we're all at, is because it is a means to an end for most of them. And how many former Duke players right now are playing professional soccer?
Yeah, quite a few. 2 years ago we had 6 drafted from our team, so that was a big class, and just the stresses of that to continue to play, and even though, I played on the national team for 13 years, and hopefully they can play in the league as long as they can, because it's a great way to make a living. And, monetarily, maybe not so much in the women's side, but, just teaching you how to be a good teammate and how to be a leader and how to deal with different things that come your way, and basically prepares you for life after soccer. And, that's what I love, is we get to be a part of that process for all these kids coming in. I don't like that every year that a new group comes in and they stay the same age and we get older. I don't like that part.
Hey, Carla, what are you guys doing as a staff right now to help your kids as they start to make the transition to hopefully coming back in the fall, around that piece of it, and then around this real call to examine racism in our country right now? We have a couple of kids on our team that are African-American, and just how are you guys, what are you doing? What advice do you have for these coaches on how to do that based on what you guys are learning and what you're doing?
Right. For sure, stay connected. And I know when this first happened, just checking their Fit for 90 and seeing how they were coping, it was really hard. Greg, I'm sure, you got lots of calls from not just our players, but all the athletes at Duke, because it's unprecedented what has happened in this country. And, we've just kind of been preparing them. We've given them some projects to do, and I think they've been excited about it. Scouting games for our year coming up, and just to keep them in the game somehow. We're going to have a call on Sunday just about, how we want to try to play this coming season. So we're keeping it soccer related, but at the same time, we're giving them a platform to say what's on their mind. And I know we reach out to them Our head coach calls them every week, reaches out to the players. And I feel like at this time right now, you need to do that. You need to stay connected, even if it's just, hey, I'm checking in. I want to say hi. I haven't talked to you in a little bit. You don't have something always to tell them. The information was changing so much, and when we were going to come back and what was going to happen. And, with our university, was it going to even be open? Was it going to be online? So that was stressful for them. Obviously, what has happened in this country with racism the last, it's been hundreds of years, and how horrible it's been. And we had a call specific to this for our team, and we have 3 Black players, and I'm white and privileged, and we have lots of white privileged people on our team, and just in society. And some people think that if you're white, you are privileged, right? And so, we gave them a platform to just speak and inform us and teach us how hard their lives have been at times, and what they have to worry about, and what white people don't have to worry about. And so I feel like it was a great conversation. We don't want to burden them with teach us. I've taken it upon myself. I've gotten a couple of books. There's some good documentaries on. And even though I feel like I have a good grasp on it, there's still so much that I can learn about it. And so I'm trying to teach myself so that I can help, generations to come, and hopefully make a change and take action and make this racism go away. We're all one, and we need to be united. And it's horrible what has happened.
You make a really good point in that I've had several of my friends that are African-American that they are tired, and they don't want us to ask them how do I learn, or they want us to take the initiative. They want us to kind of take the initiative to make a stand and to help be there and support them. But so to your point, I think they really want us to do that. And as we've talked about on here, also just remember to tell your kids, the kids that are not African American, that are white, that do have privilege, wherever they come from, that it's okay to say that I feel awkward. I don't want to offend you. I don't know what to say. It's okay to do that. It's absolutely important that they feel like they can do that. How about one more question here? Anybody else have a question or a?
I've got a question.
Yes.
So Carla, how are you?
Jamie, what's going on?
I just a quick story is I slept through weights one time, and Carla's in the peak of her career, and the worst punishment I've ever experienced in my life was having to run the golf course with Carla in her peak fitness time. So I'm starting to sweat even as we get to talk.
You know what? You were never late again, were you?
No, I wasn't. It was a good lesson. Hey, but it actually goes back to a couple questions ago, and we were talking about I'm a Division II head coach at a very high academic school as well, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach. And I find that a lot of our students are very similar to what I experienced at Duke. Very high achieving, very results oriented. They're very exceptional students. And we have found that that's sometimes a challenge to coach because they're perfectionists. Mm-hmm. And when they have this high achieving perfection, need to see results to feel validated, when they don't get that feedback, whether on the field or even they just don't allow themselves to view themselves in a positive way, we really struggle a lot with perfectionist leads to like confidence challenges. So I didn't know if there's any specific either mental approaches, strategies, even from you as a coach, as a coaching staff, what you do to try and address those players in particular that really struggle with that kind of perfectionist approach.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I feel like we get a lot of those at Duke. And I know Coach Danowski, you can probably speak to this as well, but I try to pull them aside and have like a private conversation or a separate conversation with them and just let them know that, you don't have to be great all the time. Give them a pass, right? So let them know that, everyone's human. I'm human. I make mistakes. I know you have made some mistakes. We're all in this together. And, how can I help you get over those. I'm sure at Embry-Riddle, hopefully you have a good support staff. And I know with Greg, he's a professional at that. And so we say maybe make an appointment with Greg and see how, or Dr. Dale, I don't call him Greg, Dr. Dale, and how he can, help you through those situations, because you have to give yourself a break and give yourself a pass. And I know when I was playing, I was so hard on myself, and, it would take my teammates having to kind of tell me, get over it, right? Like, we're over it, you get over it. And so I've sort of learned to recognize those situations and kind of approach it like, hey, I've forgiven you, forget it. Like, it's over. Forgive yourself, quit beating yourself up, because it doesn't help you or it doesn't help our team.
Hey, John.
One of the things that we find amazing is that, when somebody makes a mistake, they'll drop their heads. You can see their body language. But if they make a great play, they don't celebrate it. They don't pat themselves on the back. Pat yourself on the back. Come on, that's a great play. But they don't do that, because they expect that of themselves. That's that perfectionist piece. I found when I first got to Duke, I would hug guys. When they threw the ball away, I would run up to them in the middle of practice, and I'd wrap my arms around them and I'd hug them, and I'd whisper in their ear, "You're really good." And then I'd run away. Everybody would laugh. Everybody thought it was cute or funny. But the point is, you're gonna throw the ball away. You're gonna make mistakes. It's okay. And it's back to Carla's point. There's a reason that you're here. You're good. But it is the perfectionist piece. I think is well, it's alive and well.
And Sam,
And maybe you can help them, Sam, with just letting them know mistakes that you've made and be vulnerable in front of them, and just say, hey, shit, remember when I was in college one time, I overslept on an alarm, and,
They've all heard
like
that
that.
story, that's for sure.
yeah. Sam, I think it's important to the kids that are perfectionists for them to acknowledge, and for you to help them understand how it's a great quality. It's going to help them do great things in life, be very successful at what they do. But they got to just also recognize that strength can also kick you in the butt a little bit sometimes, and start to recognize when it's that time when it's kicking you in the butt. Like Carla said, you can't let go, and I'm so hard on myself, and your teammates are saying, hey, I've moved on from this. You got to move on. If they can start to learn to name it, I'm frustrated, I'm pissed, I'm anxious because I'm a perfectionist. All right, it's okay. It's kind of who I am. But that's over. Or celebrate some success, whatever it is. I just think if they can name it and be okay with that, that's part of who they are. It's part of their DNA. It's not going to go away. It's just you got to learn how to manage it better in those stressful moments. All right, it's 10:32 Eastern time.
Awesome.
Yes.
The longest overtime we've had so far.
Yes.
Because Carla is a phenomenal guest.
We're into PKs now, man.
Yeah, we are.
That's exactly right. Yes.
And nobody, I mean, this is why we're doing this again. This is 11 weeks in a row, and it's getting better.
Yeah. And look, Carla, we at Duke, we get to work with you all the time and just love having you around. And we certainly don't take you for granted, but we just, sometimes we forget about how incredible the resource you are. And I just really appreciate, and I know John does, you taking the time to come and spend some time with these coaches. And she's just as genuine in everyday life, guys, as she is right here. And it's pretty incredible. Somebody that's had so much personal success is as humble as she is. So we really appreciate you.
Well,
Somebody had asked, I'm going to jump in for a second. Somebody had asked a question before about, is there a thread, or is there a common, and maybe it's humility. Maybe the one thing that I've gotten out of today is that Carla has taught me is there is a humility in greatness. Listen, some people are genetically just superior, and that's a wonderful thing, but that you run into trouble with that. But I think the humility piece is something that I'm going to take away from today, and I'm grateful for learning that from you. Thank you.
And I just want to say thanks again. I mean, Coach Danowski, you are in lacrosse circles, and even, you know, among the Murray building, and even at Duke. I mean, with your championships, and, you know, we don't have a championship with the women's soccer program. We aspire to be like you. And, you know, we learn from you and how you operate and coach your guys. And I appreciate, you know, just being able to have an office next to you and poke my head in and say hi and learn from you. And obviously, Greg, you know, you spend so much time with our team. You help them every single day, every single season. And I know you're being pulled lots of different directions, and, you know, you're all over the country and in Europe and doing all these other things. And I just appreciate, you know, how you are with our team. And, you know, I don't know that we tell you that enough, and how much we appreciate you guys, but we do. And we learn from, you know, you every day. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And
Thank you.
hey, real quickly, Becky in the chat said, isn't it how you helped Brandy overcome the pass by telling her to move on and stay in the game?
For sure. Because I was like, holy shit, what just happened? Those of you guys that don't know, one of my teammates, unbelievable player, in front of 80,000 people at the World Cup qualifying against Germany, one of the toughest competitors we had, she scored an own goal. And, you know, if you're a defender and you've said you have never scored an own goal, one, you're lying. But two, she did it on that stage. And I knew if I were in that situation, I would have never forgiven myself. And so thank you for saying that. I know Brandy is very open and talks about that. And I just want to make sure that, you know, I got to her, and I want to be first and just let her know how important she is to the team, and she needs to forget it. And we're going to come back and win. And friggin' she scores the game tying goal, and then we score a game winner and we win. And so, you know, if she would have just unplugged and, you know, felt sorry for herself, we might have lost that game. So thank you for saying that.
It's awesome.
Awesome.
Great example. Yes. All right. We're going to sign
Great
off.
overtime. Hey, that's a penalty kick. That's a win right there.
Right.
And
That's
she
up
took
for
her
90.
shirt off.
Right. Absolutely. Take your shirt off now. Right. There you go. Hey, we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks again for coming, and tell your friends about it, and bring somebody along with you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Love you all. Thank you.